From Augustine's Confessions, Oxford World Classics Edition, Book 1. Nevertheless, even during boyhood, when there was less reason to fear than during adolescence, I had no love for reading books and hated being forced to study them. Yet pressure was put on me and was good for me. It was not of my own inclination that I did well, for I learnt nothing unless compelled. No one is doing right if he is acting against his will. Even when he is doing is good. Those who put compulsion on me were not doing right either. The good was done to me by you, my God. They gave me no consideration to the use that I might make of the things they forced me to learn. The objective they had in view was merely to satisfy the appetite for wealth and for glory. Though the appetite is insatiable, the wealth is in reality destitution of spirit, and the glory something to be ashamed of. But you, by whom the hairs of our head are numbered, use the error of all who press me to learn to turn out to my advantage. And my reluctance to learn, you used for a punishment, which I well deserved. So tiny a child, so great a sinner. So by making use of those who were failing to do anything morally right, you did good to me. And from me and my sin you exacted a just retribution. For you have imposed order, and so it is that the punishment of every disordered mind is its own disorder. Even now I have not yet discovered the reasons why I hated Greek literature when I was being taught it as a small boy. Latin I deeply loved, not at the stage of my primary teachers, but at the secondary level taught by the teachers of literature called grammarians, grammatici. The initial elements, where one learns the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic, I felt to be no less a burden and an infliction than the entire series of Greek classes. The root of this aversion must simply have been sin and the vanity of life, by which I was mere flesh, and wind going on its way and not returning. Of course, those first elements of the language were better, because more fundamental. On that foundation, I came to acquire the faculty, which I had and still possess, of being able to read whatever I find written, and to write myself whatever I wish. This was better than the poetry I was later forced to learn about the wanderings of some legendary fellow named Aeneas, forgetful of my own wanderings, and to weep over the death of Dido, who took her own life from love. In reading this, O God, my life, O God of my very life, I myself was meanwhile dying by my alienation from you, and my miserable condition in that respect brought no tear to my eyes. What is more pitiable than a wretch without pity for himself, who weeps over the death of Dido, dying for love of Aeneas, but not himself weeping and dying for his lack of love for you, my God, light of my heart, bread of the inner mouth of my soul, the power which begets life in my mind and in the innermost recesses of my thinking. I had no love for you and committed fornication against you, and in my fornications I heard all round me the cries, well done, well done. For the friendship of this world is fornication against you, and well done is what they say to shame a man who does not go along with them. Over this I wept not a tear. I wept over Dido, who died in pursuing her ultimate end with a sword. I abandoned you to pursue the lowest things of your creation. I was dust going to dust. Had I been forbidden to read this story, I would have been sad, that I could not read what made me sad. Such madness is considered a higher and more fruitful literary education than being taught to read and write. But now, may my God cry out in my soul, and may your truth tell me, it is not so, it is not so. The best education you received was the primary. Obviously, I much prefer to forget the wanderings of Aeneas and all that stuff than to read and write. It is true, veils hang at the entrances of the schools of literature, but they do not signify the prestige of elite teaching so much as the covering up of error. Let no critics shout against me. I'm not afraid of them now. While I confess to you the longing of my soul, my God, and when I accept rebuke for my evil ways and wish to love your good ways, let there be no abuse of me from people who sell or buy a literary education. If I put the question to them whether the poet's story is true that Aeneas once came to Carthage, the uneducated will reply that they don't know, while the educated will say it is false. But if I ask with what letters Aeneas' name is spelled, all who have learnt to read will reply correctly in accordance with the agreement and convention by which human beings have determined the value of these signs. Similarly, if I ask which would cause the greater inconvenience to someone's life, to forget how to read and write, or to forget these fabulous poems, who does not see what answer he would give unless he has totally lost his senses? So it was a sin in me, as a boy, when I gave pride of place in my affection to those empty fables, rather than to more useful studies, or rather when I hated the one and loved the other. But to me it was hateful chant to recite 1 and 1 is 2, and 2 and 2 are 4. Delightful was the vain spectacle of the wooden horse full of armed soldiers and the burning of Troas, and the very ghost of Creusa. Why then did I hate Greek, which had similar songs to sing? Homer was skilled at weaving such stories, and with sheer delight mixed vanity. Yet to me, as a boy, he was repellent. I can well believe that Greek boys felt the same way about Virgil, when they are forced to learn him in the way that I learnt Homer. The difficulty lies there. The difficulty of learning a foreign language at all. It sprinkles gall, as it was, over the charm of the stories the Greeks tell. I did not know any of the words, and violent pressures on me to learn them was imposed by means of fearful and cruel punishments. At one time in my infancy, I also knew no Latin, and yet by listening I learnt it with no fear or pain at all. From my nurses caressing me, from people laughing over jokes, and from those who played games and were enjoying them, I learned Latin without the threat of punishment from anyone forcing me to learn it. My own heart constrained me to bring its concepts to birth, which I could not have done unless I had learned some words, not from formal teaching, but by listening to people talking, and they in turn were the audience for my thoughts. This experience sufficiently illuminates the truth that free curiosity has greater power to stimulate learning than rigorous coercion. Nevertheless, the free-ranging flux of curiosity is channeled by discipline under your laws. Oh my God, by your laws we are disciplined, from the canes of schoolmasters to the ordeals of martyrs. Your laws have the power to temper bitter experiences in a constructive way, recalling us to yourself from the pestilential life of easy comforts, which have taken us away from you. Lord, hear my prayer, that my soul may not collapse under your discipline, and may not suffer exhaustion in confessing to you your mercies, by which you have delivered me from all my evil ways. Bring me to a sweetness surpassing all the seductive delights which I pursued. Enable me to love you with all my strength, that I may clasp your hand with all of my heart. Deliver me from all temptation to the end. You, Lord, are my King and my God. Turn to your service whatever may be of use in what I learnt in boyhood. May I dedicate to your service my power to speak and write and read and count. For when I learnt vanities, you imposed discipline on me, and have forgiven me the sin of desiring pleasures from those vanities. For in them I learnt many useful words, but these words can also be learnt through things that are not vain, and that is the safe way along which children should walk. Woe to you, torrent of human custom! Who can stand against you? When will you run dry? How long will your fluent current carry the sons of Eve into the great and fearful ocean, which can be crossed with difficulty only by those who have embarked upon the wood of cross? Have I not read in you of Jupiter, at once both thunderer and adulterer? Of course the two activities cannot be combined, but he was so described as to have given an example of real adultery, defended by the authority of a fictitious thunderclap acting as a go-between. What master of oratory can hear with an equanimity a person of his own profession sing out loud, Homer invented these fictions and attributed human powers to the gods. I wish he had attributed divine powers to us. It would be truer to say that Homer indeed invented these fictions, but he attributed divine sanctions to vicious acts, which had the result that immorality was no longer counted immorality, and anyone who so acted would have seemed to follow the example not of abandoned men, but the gods of heaven. Yet you infernal river, The sons of men are thrown into you, and fees are paid for them to learn these things. It is a matter of great public concern when a speech is made in the forum in full view of the laws decreeing the teacher's salaries to be paid from the public funds in addition to the fees paid by pupils. The river of custom strikes the rocks and roars. This is why words are learnt. This is why one has to acquire the eloquence wholly necessary for carrying conviction in one's cause and for developing one's thoughts. It is as if we do not know words as a golden shower and a bosom and deceit and temples of heaven, and other phrases occurring in the passage in question, had not Terence brought onto the stage a worthless young man citing Jupiter as a model for his own fornication. He is looking up at a mural painting. There was this picture representing how Jupiter, they say, sent a shower of gold in Danae's lap and deceived a woman. Notice how he encourages himself to lust as if he's enjoying celestial authority. But what a God, he says. He strikes the temples of heaven with his immense sound, and I am, poor little fellow, not to do the same as he? Yes, indeed, I have done it with pleasure. There's no force at all in the argument that these words are more easily learnt through this obscene text. The words actually encourage a more confident committal of a disgraceful action. I bring no charge against the words, which are like exquisite and precious vessels, but the wine of error is poured into them for us by drunken teachers. If we failed to drink, we were caned and could not appeal to any sober judge. Yet my God, you, my God, before whose sight I now recall this without the memory disturbing me. I learnt this text with pleasure and took delight in it, wretch that I was. For this reason I was said to be a boy of high promise. Let me, my God, say something also about the intelligence, which was your gift to me, and the ways in which I wasted it on follies. A task was set me, which caused me deep psychological anxiety. The reward was praise, but I feared shame and blows if it did it so badly. I was to recite the speech of Juno in her anger and grief, that she could not keep the Trojan king out of Italy. I had understood that Juno never said this, but we were compelled to follow in our wanderings the path set by poetic fictions, and to express in plain prose the sense which the poet had put in the verse. The speaker who received highest praise was the one who had regard to the dignity of the imaginary characters, who most effectively expressed feelings of anger and sorrow, and who clothed these thoughts in appropriate language. What could all this matter to me, true life, my God? What importance could it have been for me for my recitation was acclaimed beyond many other readers of my age group? Was not the whole exercise mere smoke and wind? Was there no other subject on which my talent and tongue might be exercised? Your praises, Lord, your praises expressed through your scriptures, would have upheld the tender vine of my heart, and would not have been snatched away by the empty trifles to become a shameful prey for the birds. There is more than one way of offering sacrifice to the fallen angels.